I heard Joe Rogan, Joe Silver, John McCarthy, the Shamrocks, the Gracies helped do the Octagon, did the no rules thing, and then some 30 events later, Dana said one time, he goes, all I bought was 3 letters, UFC. There was nothing else. Yeah, but sometimes 3 letters can mean a lot, right? And I would say IBM, right? ABC is the big TV network in the U.S. 3 letters. But the thing about the UFC was when he bought it, they, as I said, Big John, Joe McCarthy, Joe Silvers, Frank Shamrock, Ken Shamrock, the Gracies, the Octagon itself. But it was the sense that it was the baddest thing on the planet. Like the 90s, we were coming out of the 80s, hair bands, and the WWE was crazy, and everything was overblown. And I wanted the UFC to just cut through the bullshit. Like there was, when people say money talks and bullshit walks, right? Like, could you walk the walk in the UFC? And all the bullshit fell away. Now, it's still a spectacle, but could you back up what you were saying? And in the Octagon, the bullshit, goes over the top and out. And so we created it for this. And that's what I think Dana inherited. And I think what Dana got were all the creative elements I put together. But then he had to bring it back to being accepted again, because it was turned off on TV. It was only on DirecTV.
It's banned in many states, right?
Banned. I said banned in 49 states, but I'd done it in 6. And they're 50 states. And nobody ever went, Campbell, that's 55 states. It wasn't actually banned. It was not regulated. There's a difference, right? Because the athletic commissions tend to do boxing. They're not called boxing commissions. They're called athletic commissions. And a very powerful U.S. senator was trying to establish a national boxing
Is that John
commission.
McCain?
John McCain, right? So he was using the UFC as sort of a way to get a national or a federal boxing commission, athletic commission. So, but here's the thing, like we did this study and we found girls' high school football, we said soccer, girls' high school soccer had more concussions than the UFC. But that's not a good marketing. Girls' soccer is safer, but $29.95. Watch the UFC. There are some rules. Like, that's not good. No rules. 2 men enter, 1 man leave. That's what's going to get people to tune in, right? So again, back to one of your original questions about optics. We made it seem like it was banned everywhere because people want something they can't have. You tell someone they can't have it, what do they want? They want it immediately. So that was part of it.
And did that lead to your departure?
My departure is a polite word. I was invited to go somewhere else. What do they say to drunks in a bar? You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. The wording was really heartbreaking because I think of I have 3 wonderful children and now a daughter-in-law. It's wonderful kids. Really proud of my kids, and I feel like the UFC is my 4th child. I really do. And it's like I gave the child up for adoption that became very famous and took over the world. And I was like, no, that's actually my kid. It was very upsetting. It took me a long time to get over that.
How did it impact you? And does that pain grow as you see the UFC grow?
My wife is quite pissed off, because, I've done quite well in my career, but I'm not a billionaire. And my wife often looks at, Dana and the Fertittas who did become billionaires. Dana's not a billionaire yet. Slap fighting may get him there. Look, I'm very proud of the UFC. And it was a good 2007, 2008. So I left at 2000 and I did an MMA show called The Iron Ring in 2007. So it was 7 years. I was producing TV shows I did a show with a guy named Sir Paul McCartney, which was kind of interesting. And I created a TV series called The Wrong Man, which is about wrongfully convicted people in jail with DNA research had, seen that they were in life in prison, but they were innocent. I did that one because, I'm trying to lower the temperature of my seat in hell. And I figure every time I do like a good deed, like they're just going to turn it down like 3 degrees, because I'm definitely going south when I expire. There's no doubt about it. But maybe I can get the seat down to like a lower temperature. So I did a number. I did a lot of advocacy shows. I work for Amnesty International, and did a lot of big TV entertainment specials with comedians and musicians for good causes. Again, trying to get that temperature turned down on my seat.
So did the departure from the UFC make you feel like a dirty man because you were kind of edged out? Did you try and inflict
David,
better
I did
good
mention
karma?
I was Scottish, right? Like, the more you tell me I'm an asshole, the more I embrace it and tell you to fuck the fuck off. So I got to the point where I was so sick. Like, John McCain, Senator McCain, who ran for president against Donald Trump, like lost the nomination to Trump. He's a very powerful man. And he'd been a war hero. He'd been a POW in Vietnam, Navy officer. He called me a threat to Western civilization. Do I look like a threat to Western civilization? But, I took that as a compliment. It's also like you have to remember the times. The biggest problem in the U.S. in 96, that's when McCain was really coming after me, was the president got a blowjob. Like, that was the U.S. biggest problem. Bill Clinton got a blowjob. And there was no ISIS, 9/11 hadn't happened. The economy was good. Like, things were good. So the president's blowjob and me, we were the biggest problems.
You combined the two together.
So, you have to put that in perspective. So it was so, it seemed so utterly ridiculous to me that I was being put in this position. But I embraced it. They were mad at me for what I'd done. I was, fuck you, And so I dug in my heels. And the more I dug in my heels, the more the problem was exacerbated, right? So I don't know if there was ever a conciliatory point possible with me there. So again, I was invited to go somewhere else. And when I left, essentially, with Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta, Lorenzo more than Frank. Frank ran the casino side of the Fertitta business, and Lorenzo ran the UFC side. Essentially, what they needed to do was start over, right? They needed a new broom sweeps clean. And they needed to sort of, in Russia, they used to airbrush out people's pictures. And sometimes in the Russian propaganda pictures, you see one shoe, right? And they'd airbrush the body out, but left in one shoe. That's kind of how I feel about the UFC. Like, I go there, like, I go, everyone knows who I am, right? My DNA is very much in the UFC. Dana White knows who I am. Joe Rogan knows who I am, but many fans do not. And that's kind of a strange feeling.